But when you talk about the civil rights, with the civil rights movement, to bring it back, it was not only was it unethical, it was social. It was a socialist Trojan horse, but it was a usurpation of the rights of the states, and it was
Mm.
completely unneeded. Not only was it unconstitutional law, I can even go back to, say, for example, the Brown v. Board of Education decision, which everybody just says, oh man, that was a monumental moment in American history. But
Please break it down.
The Brown versus the Board of Education was unconstitutional law because the federal government has no constitutional authority to involve itself in the educational process.
Oh,
Period.
wow. No, you didn't. No, you
It's for the
didn't.
states to control.
Ooh,
If
yes,
it's
sir.
not outlined
Yep.
clearly in the
Hmm.
Constitution, then you have to fall on the dictates of the 10th Amendment.
Yeah.
And you let the people in the states deal with it. It is not the job of the federal government to involve itself in the educational process. And
Hey,
what has happened, sorry, Neil,
no,
what
you
has
good.
happened as a result of the civil rights movement is what great men like Arizona Senator Barry Goldwater prophesied, which was that this was going to severely cripple and undermine not only our political system, is going to undermine us culturally, and it was going to undermine us economically. Everybody asks
Hmm.
the question, how do we get from simply wanting equal opportunity to wanting equal outcomes? Well, the equal outcome idea was built upon Title VII within the Civil Rights Act that was brought forth by way of the Supreme Court in 1971 with the Griggs versus Duke Power decision, which came up with this concept called disparate impact. The concept of disparate impact fed on the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which determined, for those of you who don't know, who are unfamiliar with the legal precedent that was created in 1971 called disparate impact, that any kind of standard, even if the intent, this is what the Supreme Court in a 9-0 unanimous decision in
Stop it.
1971 dictated, that if the outcome was asymmetrical in terms of race or anything that is considered a protected class,
Which is
then
variable and
right,
arbitrary.
then it was deemed illegal and unconstitutional, hence illegal. And to go back to that particular case in general, here's what
Mm.
happened. Duke's Power was a company in North Carolina, and its employees, the Black employees, filed suit against their employer because in order to transfer departments, or in some cases to be given a promotion, you had to pass an aptitude test. If you had to pass an aptitude test, if you did not have a high school diploma,
Of
a
course.
disproportionate percentage of Duke Power's Black employees didn't have high school diplomas, and a disproportionate percentage of them were denied departmental transfers because they could not pass this aptitude test.
Oh
The
shit.
court specifically stated that even if on its face the test is not racial in nature, if it results in an asymmetrical outcome distribution, then it is illegal if it disproportionately affects a certain group or class of people.
Okay, Chuck.
That's
This was decided in what year?
1971.
Hell no.
Now,
What?
listen to me now, Neil.
That's
This
dirty.
is what gave rise to the federal bureaucracy, this whole thing, the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, all this garbage, to make sure, this communist garbage in our federal government, to make sure that everything was equitable, and that, because their sole job and their sole goal and purpose became to implement their own version of what they call quote unquote social justice.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the civil rights movement created. But what happened is, and why Black folks were damaged especially, is because once the federal government began to interfere with the interactions of free willing and dealing individuals, it interrupted the process. Thus, free individuals, Black and white, Asian, doesn't matter. Notice they always leave Asians out because that's the inconvenient minority that
Of
these racial
course, of
hustlers don't want
course.
to talk
Yep.
about.
Hell no.
But
Where,
listen now,
where's the Chinese activists?
they ain't nowhere. Nowhere. And there is no slew of Chinese politicians that are
Exactly.
implementing laws for them, because it doesn't work that way. Because the government does not produce, going back to this whole notion of capitalism versus communism, the wealth belongs with the people, nowhere else. When the government gets involved with
It's like the free market.
with the right, when they get involved with the natural law, free market, the mechanisms of it, it interferes with incentives and process. And it is incentives and process that must remain sacrosanct, because people will no longer interact with one another because no one is confident in themselves that they know the rules.
It's about giving people the resources and the support they need so that everyone can be on equal footing and then compete on equal footing. Equitable treatment means we all end up at the same place.